We're live.
All right, everybody, we're live. Welcome, everybody, to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Friday, January 23rd, and we are here with Burlington Electric Department to talk about extending the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act. So we'll quickly introduce ourselves. I have a quick committee housekeeping thing, and then we'll turn it over to you. So I'm Rep. Kathleen James from Manchester.
Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury. Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington. Michael South from Caledonia, too.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Dara Torrey, Washington 2.
Great. And in the room,
Daniel Perry, the Craftsman Group.
Jonathan Wolf from Cooper Piper on behalf of Burlington Electric.
Amber Whitmere, Burlington Electric.
Great. Trina and I, DNRC. Super. Thank you all for being here. Just real quick, so folks know, on H527, our cell tower siting bill, after our committee conversation yesterday, I thought that the most useful next step to try to keep us moving forward would be to have an amendment for us to bounce off of. So instead of just continuing to float around with all the public comments and all the information we're receiving, we can have some language to look at. So I asked Rep. Sibilia and Campbell to sit with Ellen to try to distill everything we've heard and come up with a proposed amendment, and then we'll have something concrete to look at and focus our next steps. So
Would that be amendment from the committee or bill sponsor and the co-chair?
it's a great House Rules question. I don't know.
Okay.
Language for us to look at that we can be like, yeah, this is what we had in mind. This isn't what I had in mind. What about this? What about that? And then if
we vote on it in committee, then
it would become part of the bill.
Committee amendment. If we present it on the floor, it would be from whoever presents it on the floor. Okay, that was whose name is associated with it. All right, thank you, but
yeah, but it's not a set in stone thing. I just feel like we need to have something to look at. So, okay, on we go. Sorry, Darren, for the record.
So I'm Darren Springer, General Manager with Burlington Electric, and I think I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Let's see if that works. Excellent. I'm going to talk a little briefly about Burlington Electric. I know we've been here with you before. I'm going to spend a moment on the third slide talking about our fiscal health, because I know you're taking testimony from all the different utilities about that. So we'll give you some key points about our fiscal situations, and then we will jump into the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act and how it potentially impacts us going forward. So Burlington Electric, we are the largest municipal electric utility in the state, third largest utility overall, well over 100 years old now. We operate both as a distribution utility, but also uniquely as an energy efficiency utility. So we serve our customers in Burlington with energy efficiency services the way that Efficiency Vermont does for the rest of the state. And we overlap quite a bit with Vermont Gas, who has its own energy efficiency program. And most of our customers, the vast majority, have natural gas service as well as Burlington Electric service. We're 123 positions, 86 IBEW Local 300. We are 100% renewable since 2014. Our peak here, as you can see, in the summertime, 65 megawatts. So we're about 6.5% or so of the Vermont peak, and Vermont, of course, is about 4% of the regional peak. So just to give you a sense of some of the scale. We have over almost 21,800 customers. About 3/4 of our customers are residential, and of those, about 60% are renters. And then in terms of our energy use, it's flipped. About 3/4 of our energy use is coming from the commercial sector. And if you think about UVM and the medical center, kind of the larger institutions make up a good chunk of our energy use in Burlington. So, fiscal health. So in December of 2025, so just last month, we had our A3 credit rating affirmed by Moody's and a credit rating update. And we actually had our scorecard metrics, which are indicative of kind of what score you would get, improved than they compared to the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. So pandemic was obviously for us a challenging moment. I think for everybody a challenging moment in various ways because we are so heavily dependent on commercial for our energy use. And so many commercial institutions were closed during the pandemic. Even though residential use was up, our overall operating revenues were down significantly. And so we had, during the pandemic, our first rate change in 12 years. We went from 2009 to 2021 without any rate changes whatsoever. We had a rate change of 7.5% back then. And since then, we've tried to do annual rate changes at moderate levels, low to mid single digits, typically between kind of the 3.5% and 5.5% range. Our most recent rate change that's pending at the Public Utility Commission is a 4.5% rate change. And Vermont now has the lowest rates in the New England region. We used to be second or third. Now we're the lowest. And within Vermont, our residential rates are some of the most competitive around. Our commercial rates are pretty much in line with the Vermont average.
Yeah, Rip Marl.
What are your top cost drivers?
I would say the biggest cost driver at the moment is regional transmission costs, which I know you heard, I think, from ISO New England yesterday. We've seen that line item go up by, $1 million or more in consecutive years. And it's something that's relatively outside of our control. But I would say, at least a third of our driver for rate change is coming from the regional transmission costs. Certainly we see, labor costs, healthcare, other things that everybody sees, inflation. But I want to call that out as being one of the drivers for certain. Yeah, regional transmission. We are independently financially audited. We've had at least 13 years in a row of having a clean, unmodified audit opinion. Our audits are published on our website. I included the link here, so anybody can look at them with our financial statements. In FY25, our most recently completed fiscal year, we had a net income of nearly $2.5 million. That was even considering that during that year, we had an error that was documented, I think, in the news and elsewhere, where we were unable to monetize the full value of 1/4's production of REX from the McNeil plant due to a staff transition issue. And so we've done a lot of process improvement work to make sure that never occurs again. But so even in a year where we had that impact, which for us was a roughly $1 million impact, we still had a net income that was quite favorable. So that's our most recent completed year. In terms of liquidity, we have a $10 million line of credit that we have not touched, that we've had for a number of years. It was previously $5 million. Now it's $10 million. We don't use it, but it helps count towards our days cash on hand metrics for our Moody's credit rating. And in terms of our days cash on hand as of December, estimated at 84 days when you don't count the line of credit, 144 days when you do count the line of credit. So that's relatively healthy metric. We aim for around 90 days at a minimum for the A rating metrics for Moody's with the line of credit. So we're exceeding that right now. We have a Citizen Electric Commission as one level of multiple levels of regulatory oversight. We're regulated by our Electric Commission. I report directly to the mayor and we report to the City Council of Burlington. We're regulated there. We're also regulated by the Public Utility Commission and Department of Public Service, and of course, governed as well by the legislature and the laws that you pass. So we're unique in, I think, the country relatively in having that many levels of governance. But we report monthly to our Electric Commission, our financials. They're reported publicly. They're live streamed on Town Meeting TV, and they're part of a public packet. So we couldn't be more forthcoming with our financials. When we're having a good month or a bad month, we talk about it in public session and we explain the drivers and the reasons why. I think I've covered pretty much everything on the slide. Let me pause there if there are questions that the committee has on our financials that I can answer.
This isn't on financials, but it's on the commercial. You said 75%. I was just curious if you have, with your large loads, the ability to have them ramp down as needed for peak.
We do have some programs in place currently, including with our commercial customers. In some cases, we have automated control systems that we can reach out during peak events. With residential customers, we've largely had a voluntary program called Defeat the Peak. However, we have some new tools in the toolbox. We have an EV charging rate for EV customers where we provide you a discounted rate, and we will interrupt you during peak events, and you can charge at the discounted rate otherwise pretty much any time of the day. So that helps avoid peak usage with EVs. We also have a program that's rolling out called Building Giants that is partly funded with a federal grant from the Department of Energy, where we're going to, with commercial customers and with residential customers, try to do load control on heat pumps and other electric heating technology. We're aiming to have 1,000 to 1,500 residential heat pump customers enrolled, and then we're working with commercial customers as well. And the idea being similar to the EVs, that we could ramp down usage a little bit during peaks. You don't, with a heat pump, you're not going to shut it off. Obviously, somebody's using it for heating or cooling. But if we can modulate by a few degrees, you'll get a significant savings benefit if you can aggregate that over enough units. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the topic we're here to discuss, the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act. And I'll go into a little bit why we wanted to come and talk with you about it. So as an energy efficiency utility, we receive an allotment of the Thermal Energy and Process Fuel, or TEPF, funds that the state has as a result of being part of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, the RGGI program, as well as bidding energy efficiency projects into ISO New England's forward capacity market. So we get a share of those revenues that are attributable to Burlington for our customers. The challenge for us is that if you go to the statute, the language says TEPF funds are used for unregulated fuel customers, meaning primarily propane, fuel oil, in some cases could be wood or kerosene. As I mentioned before, roughly 95 to 99%, depending on the sector, of our customers use natural gas, which is a regulated fuel. So we've historically had a very limited market, narrow market, to use TEPF funds in Burlington. For 8+ years now, the legislature has granted us the ability to use those funds in different ways to serve all of our customers. Back in the 2018-2019 timeframe, the legislature passed legislation that enabled us to use some of those funds to do feasibility work for district energy purposes. Since 2021, the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act has been in effect in various forms. Most recent form is Act 142 of 2024. And basically what it said is, as an efficiency utility, we're able to use some of our funds to help customers more broadly with different types of energy reduction and emission reduction projects, as opposed to being limited, in this case with TEPF, just to our propane and fuel oil customers. So,
Sorry, just if you could go back.
yes.
So, okay, sorry, there was a key sentence I didn't see. So you get an allotment of TEPF funds. I missed that one sentence. All right.
We do.
So
yes.
you get it, but you can only use it for your unregulated fuel customers,
Right.
which is a super small percentage
Very
of your client base.
correct.
Okay, on we go.
Oh,
Nope.
I'm going back. Here we are.
Does BED as an efficiency utility bid into the capacity market?
Yeah, some of our projects are part of that bidding into the ISO market. That's correct.
Just like EBT does.
Yeah, same as efficiency Vermont.
And proportions, can you give me a sense of that?
I don't know top of my head what the relative proportion would be. We could certainly get you that information.
And as far as the proportion of TEPF that BED gets, how does that align with with what EPT gets, with what your customer base is?
It fluctuates. I think it's hard to say too, because going forward, I know the efficiency budgets are going to change. In terms of the electric efficiency budget, we're looking at probably a third reduction for us, and potentially I think other efficiency utilities, because certain measures are no longer going to be considered, like lighting and other things.
But that's from the EEC.
That's EEC. Now, in terms of TEPF, in some years the revenues might be $1 million or something like that. So over a 3-year period, it could be a few $1 million of TEPF money. Whereas on the electric side, we would have somewhere between typically 8 to 9 million, roughly. So those are just relative BED proportions.
What I guess what I was asking is not TEPF funding relative to EEC, but TEPF the BED gets relative to.
Oh, I'd have to check on that because I'm not familiar with how much efficiency Vermont gets.
Yeah.
But we could certainly get back to you. I think it's relative to our customer base, though.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
It's generally proportional to. So we're not receiving more than we deserve. We're receiving the allotment that's based on our customer base and our participation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So I was mentioning just now the Act 142 of 2024, the most recent iteration. What that did was give us the ability during what we call the current kind of 3-year performance period, which is 2024 to 2026, to do a variety of programs to serve all of our customers, not just our unregulated fuel customers, in the transportation and the thermal sectors. And Act 142 actually said we can propose programs for the next performance period, 27 through 29, which is currently in process at the PUC. But in order to actually implement those programs, we would need to come back to the legislature and ask for an extension of this law. And I'll just mention the artwork here is from our 4th grade public school students in Burlington. We have a net zero calendar we do every year, and I always love to include a little of their artwork where it's relevant in these slides. Keep things lively.
Love the artwork.
Yes.
And I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to look into this before your testimony. Is that all the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act does?
Yeah. So the current,
it doesn't contain 25,000 things and one little bit of it.
Right. No,
it's your piece. That is what it is.
The whole thing basically says to us, and the current version, to us in Efficiency Vermont, you can use your efficiency funds or a portion of them in innovative ways that are not currently allowed. What we're actually seeking as an extension is much narrower than that, and I'll get into that in a moment. But that's the current version, essentially.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you also, and you probably said this and I missed it. Energy, the EEM applies not only to TEPF but also to EEC.
Correct.
Okay.
Currently, that's right, and it applies both to Efficiency Vermont and BED currently. So what we're actually asking for is an extension that would only apply to TEPF, not to the EEC. As I mentioned, the efficiency charge funds we're reducing a lot the volume, and we don't think it's prudent to put those funds towards anything other than the electric efficiency at this point. So we're only asking for a TPF extension, and we're only asking for it for Burlington Electric. My understanding is Efficiency Vermont's not seeking an extension of the program for their own purposes. And obviously they have a very different market than we do. They have a lot of different reasons. If you think of the oil and propane market broadly in Vermont, there are a lot of customers to serve as opposed to Burlington where there are very few. So they may have a different dynamic in using their TPF funds than we do. But so I've consulted with them and they're not seeking an extension, but for us, we are seeking it. And what it would allow us to do is continue to serve all of our customers with these programs instead of the relative few who are on oil and propane. Importantly, this does not require new revenue. It does not create any new costs. It's existing revenue that's coming to Burlington Electric. We're just seeking flexibility to use it for different purposes. For us, and I'll get into this more in a moment, we submitted a plan on December 19th to the Public Utility Commission outlining what we would do if you all grant us this flexibility. And it would allow us for 1.7 million roughly of our TPF funds over that 3-year period between 2027 and 2029 to put that amount towards a variety of programs, which I'll outline in a moment, to help our customers. Significantly, it will help us continue to boost our electric vehicle incentives, which we did following the federal government's abrupt elimination of federal credits. And we know there used to be state rebates and those are no longer funded either. So our electric vehicle credit's the only credit that Burlington Electric customers are eligible for. We'd like to keep it at an elevated level for as long as we can to support that market. And if we're unable to get the extension, the kind of flip side of it is in 2027, our EV incentives, our heat pump incentives would go down significantly. We would have to reduce significantly the EV charging incentives for rental properties that we currently offer. And we would have to eliminate our geothermal test well program. That's the negative. The positive, the better way to frame it, perhaps, is here are all the things we'd like to do if the flexibility is granted to continue doing. So geothermal test wells, we currently have a program where if a customer, and this is primarily commercial customers, said we want to drill a test well, it can cost $20,000, $30,000, or $40,000, and there's no guarantee you'll hit a water level that allows you to do a geothermal system. So it's a bit of a risk for the customer. What we've done through this Efficiency Modernization Act is we help defray a portion of that cost. And I was just this week on Wednesday at the new Burlington High School that's serving our students starting next year. They were one of the customers we helped drill a geothermal test well. It worked. They have a beautiful geothermal heating and cooling system in that building now that's going to hopefully, be a 60+ year investment, I say, as a Burlington taxpayer. We want it to run for a long time, that building. And so they're going to be heated and cooled with geothermal. And that was a direct result in part of our being able to help them drill the test well and make that, an option for them. We've done that with other customers as well. So that's one program that we have. We also, I mentioned 60% of our customers are renters. We care quite a bit about making sure they have access to electric vehicles and not just folks who have a single family home. So we've invested in EV charging at multifamily properties. We have had some success with that. I think we're near 40 stations now installed for rental and multifamily properties. We also invest in charging that we own and operate, drop-down charging from utility poles where somebody can park on street if they don't have off-street parking, and they can, using an app, the charger drops down to them, plugs in, and we've even set it up so that they can get an off-peak rate as well overnight for that charging, so that they can benefit just like a single-family home resident would from off-peak charging. So we would like to continue to be investing in that space for our customers, and the EEMA has allowed us to do that. I mentioned boosting our heat pump and EV incentives. We feel like that's really important. There'd been some discussion in the regulatory context about EV incentives in particular. Are they, are the utility incentives too generous? Are they causing actual customer demand, or are they just sort of riding along? And I think that would have been an interesting conversation when we had $7,500 federal tax credit, $4,000 state rebate, and then we used to have a $2,300 utility incentive. You might have said, well, yours is not as impactful. Now, with the $7,500 gone from the federal government, $4,000 gone from state government, we boosted our incentive temporarily to $5,000. For our income qualified customers, it's up to $5,700. And roughly just under a quarter of our EV and plug-in hybrid rebates go to income qualified customers as enhanced incentives. This is not a program that simply serves market rate customers. We're actually helping quite a number of our income qualified customers in Burlington access EVs and plug-in hybrids. So this legislative extension would enable us to continue that into at least 2027. As opposed to having our incentives drop back down to pre-Efficiency Modernization Act levels. A new program that we would like to propose to meet a need is for income qualified customers to help them upgrade their electric panel. We see quite a bit now that as people are looking at installing different things, whether it's an induction cook stove or an EV charger, a heat pump, they may need to upgrade their panel. They may not have room, or they may need different service. We'd like to be able to help our income qualified customers with that expense to enable them to participate more in electrification. Did you have a
well, I was the upgrade in rural Vermont, upgrade of panels and or service, upgrade above 100 amp service. But are you alluding to more positions in the panel that are required?
Yeah.
And they already do have ample amperage into the main?
Generally speaking, that's what we're talking about. So a lot of customers, not all, but a lot of customers in Burlington have 200 amp service because so many of us were on electric heat previously.
But not enough positions.
But perhaps not enough positions in the panel, not enough breakers, et cetera.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. So that's what we potentially be able to help with.
Rep. Sibilia?
Where's the income level for income qualified?
So we use metrics from our CEDO department. I believe it's 185% of federal poverty. We participate with Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund, the Delta Climb Business Accelerator Program. I mentioned our rental EV charging program. The company we've worked with there is actually a participant from this program. We met back in 2019 through this Business Accelerator Program, where Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund brings these businesses, seed stage businesses from all over the country and the world to Vermont. To Burlington Electric, actually, we host with other utilities participating. We host these sprints that they do where they bring in mentors and they help, with these seed stage businesses. So EV Match is a company that we work with on rental EV charging. We met them through this program. So the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act funding includes funding for us to do a pilot each year with a seed stage energy business to try to, see if we can do things like we did with the EV charging in the rental space with more businesses. And we also do commercial sector, what we call custom projects. So those could be a variety of different things. They've supported in the past electric transit buses with our Green Mountain Transit. We have 7 of their 70 buses are now electric in Burlington and charging off peak, which is great for load. We also do commercial custom projects with other customers looking at, rooftop units and chillers and other things. So we have funding for that as well. So this is the kind of list of things that we would like to be able to continue to do. But we would need as I mentioned, a narrow extension. I think it might even be like a page or two at most of legislative text that would enable this. Because it's only affecting TPF and it's only affecting Burlington Electric, but enable us to continue these programs. And I wanted to offer one last comment before I stop sharing the slides. and happy to answer additional questions. I've had some consultation with the Department of Public Service. I know they're testifying here today as well.
They are next.
Yes. So I know that they care, as I know you all do and we do, about weatherization quite a bit as well. And I think a critique of theirs, of these programs in the past, has been we haven't dedicated a lot of funding to weatherization. In Burlington, Vermont Gas provides the weatherization services primarily to customers who have gas service. But I've heard from the department that they would be interested in our having a portion of these funds, if this is granted, dedicated to weatherization. And I just wanted to share with the committee that we're happy to work on that with you and with them. If there was a desire to add different weatherization projects to this list here and make sure that we allocate a portion of funds to that, we're happy to do that. We love weatherization as well. So I don't want to get ahead of their testimony, and they'll obviously offer their perspective, but I just wanted to share that we're happy to collaborate on that.
That's great. And actually, thanks for that. Great. Thanks for that heads up. That could save us some time because they requested to testify and I didn't gatekeep. So here they come in and I didn't know what they were going to say.
Well,
So
not to get ahead of them, but
no, understood.
We're
But
very
it would
much
be,
happy to-
if that is their request, it would be okay with you.
Yes, we would be happy to work on that.
Okay.
And
Rep.
I'll
Mara.
stop sharing screens here as well.
Do we have a bill on this yet?
No, we do not have a bill on this.
Proposal. And what's your time frame on this?
Well, we'd be happy to work with you on any time frame that you have. We definitely would need to have something this session because we're in the midst of our demand resource plan, which will be adjudicated this calendar year.
Right.
It's a crossover thing. And I didn't draft anything because we hadn't heard the testimony yet. So there's nothing kicking around. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, having worked on this before, I definitely am in support of extending this and hopefully we can improve something.
I don't know who's next. Right.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if you mentioned it. What's the scale of money that would be affected here?
1.7 million for us over a 3-year period.
Would it just be for BEDs purposes?
Yes.
How did the EEM, the energy efficiency, the EEM
Yes.
Act, how did that affect EVT? What did that enable them to do?
Yeah, so previous iteration, the one that's currently in effect, allowed Efficiency Vermont, if I'm remembering correctly, to put up to 2 million of their EEC funds annually, or I don't know. Yeah, I think it was annually. It might have been over a 3-year period because I'm fuzzy on their details. I'm more familiar with ours. But it was $2 million cap on how much EEC they could put towards these programs, and they've developed their own list of programs and submitted those. The most current version of the legislation didn't require these programs to be approved at the PUC, provided that they met various metrics. We essentially had to notify the PUC of what we were doing, and then we were able to move forward with the program. So they would have had their own set of programs. We also had EEC authority in the prior version for up to 800,000 of programs. We're not asking to continue that, as I mentioned. And uniquely, we had TEPF authority as well. There was language that said, and typically in law, when we refer to BED only, we say a distribution utility that's also an energy efficiency appointed provider, because there's only one of us. And it had language like that, and it said can use TEPF funds to reduce emissions, do projects that reduce emissions in the thermal and transportation sector.
So the effect of this act was to allow shifting of EEC money into thermal programs.
Correct.
And also to allow BED, the only utilities so described, to use some TEPF funding, and not only for regulated fossil.
That's a great summary. Okay, that's exactly right.
Okay. And what was the scale of funding of TEPF funding that you used for the last 3 years?
Yeah,
current 3 years.
Several million, because we had available to us carry forward TEPF funds that were unused from a previous period. And then we had, as I mentioned, we get several million typically in a 3-year period of TEPF funds, some of which I should say we do continue to reserve for those traditional programs that serve propane, and oil customers. We have a very limited number, but we do have program offerings there for weatherization, as well as the Zero Energy Modular Home program. So we have the North Avenue Co-op in Burlington is a modular home community, cooperative community, and we offer and have done some rebates for the Zero Energy Modular homes, which are way more efficient. And so we offer those. There's usually a few $100,000 of our TPF money that's going towards those traditional programs, and then several million in a given 3-year period that's available for these types of programs that we
You
can
said
talk about
1.7
today.
million, was that annually then? For the
No,
3-year
so
period?
the next period of our TPF total budget, which
Yeah.
I think is roughly 2 million or so, 1.7 million would be, if you pass this, enabled to fund these programs we talked about. And we would reserve a little under 300,000 to continue to do weatherization and the Zero Energy Modular Home program for our oil and propane customers.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good. I think I got it now.
Rick Bailey?
Yeah, so do you have money currently that you haven't spent? Because you can only use it for propane and fuel oil.
We would, if not for this legislation that's already enacted for the current period. So we're using, or we anticipate using by the end of 2026, which is the end of the period, the bulk of our TPF funds. And because we would be in that situation where we had a bunch of unused if we were limited only to oil and propane, but because of the legislation you all enacted back in 23 and 24, we've been able to put it towards these other programs. So we're fully utilizing it for our broad customer base as opposed to just the oil and propane customers.
Quick question on induction stoves. Do
Yeah.
you offer incentives?
We do, not through this particular set of funds, but through our Tier 3 program, which is through the Renewable Energy Standard, we're all required to offer Tier 3 incentives. We have an incentive for induction stoves. We just launched it relatively recently in the last couple of years. We just got over 100 recently, so I think we're at around 119 rebates that we've done. And I am a personal induction stove customer, and I love the technology, and I have learned a few things about how it works in terms of which pots and pans I can keep versus replace, and how to size them correctly for the use on the induction stove. But they boil water in 2-3 minutes if you have the right cookware, and it's pretty amazing.
And there's even a new kind that has a battery in it,
Yes.
so you don't have to do 220.
Yes. So this is a really interesting technology, and we're seeing this a little bit in the heat pump water heating space as well. So we talked about, electric panels, amperage, having a 240 or 220, type of outlet you need for an induction cook stove or for a heat pump water heater. Increasingly, there are companies that are working on 120 or 110 level where you can plug into a regular outlet with a heat pump water heater that might be a hybrid unit, or with an induction cook stove that has a lithium battery that can be used to store energy, so that when you're using the induction at the level that required a 200 plus amp, you're using the battery to supplement the cord, and you don't have to upgrade your service. So I think that's really innovative technology and could be used in power outages and other things. Yeah.
So are the induction stoves replacing gas stoves
Generally speaking.
generally?
Yeah.
And I thought the induction stove was like a traditional resistance stove, leg A, leg A, leg B, leg B, for the burners at the 120, and the 240 or 220 was just for the oven.
Yeah, it looks like that. And you can get just the top kind of what we call a hob, like a 1 or 2 burner hob, and plug that into a regular outlet. Renters sometimes can do that. But you're right that if you're getting the full oven is when you need potentially to upgrade. And they do use magnetic technology, I believe, as opposed to the electric resistance, which do a different type of heating.
That's a whole induction.
Yeah, that's right.
Do most of the homes have full 20 amp circuits, or are these, I would imagine with an aging stock, that many of the circuits would still be just 15 amp?
I don't know what the relative breakdown is. I know in my home, which was, it's in Burlington, it's built in 1983, for example, had electric heat at one point, because we see the Westinghouse thermostats around the house that are no longer in use. We had to do an upgrade on our panel to be able to enable, just for breaker space, to be able to enable the, the circuit for the induction stove. But we're 20 amp most of our.
Right. But 83,
Yeah.
I would expect in late 70, 75, so
Yeah.
that era, that 20 amp became
Yeah.
the norm and
Right.
the 15 amp one, I think.
So we do have a mix, and some homes would
Well,
require
I
a
just
different.
imagine Burlington was a lot older.
We do have
a lot
older housing
older,
stock in some areas.
And
Yeah.
maybe even some 60 amp, 5 amp
Yeah.
panels kicking around.
Well, yeah, maybe
Probably
so.
that hasn't been sold.
That's true. That's true. Yep.
Silence.
Yeah.
I do.
Dad, do you have electric school buses?
No.
So interestingly, we don't really have dedicated school buses. So Green Mountain
No.
Transit serves the students. So we do have we have electric buses within their fleet. So in that case, they might ride on an electric school bus, but the students who ride the bus are riding typically a Green Mountain Transit bus. Yeah.
Do those electric buses last for 2 shifts for 16 hours?
So
Or do they?
yeah, like what I understand from them, they bought 2 back in 2020, and they bought 5 more recently from a different vendor. The original ones from 2020 were intended to run all the routes in Burlington, and then some, I think, regional routes that might go out to like Williston or different places. The range was more limited, and particularly in the wintertime, you might face some constraints. The newer ones, I think, have a more robust infrastructure and may be capable of running even longer routes. But what we've worked out with them is they're using them during the day for whichever shifts they're running. They're coming and they're charging overnight, for probably, I'm guessing, about 8 hours or so. We have kind of a similar thing. We have an electric bucket truck for our line crew, first in the state, that we got with a grant from ACCD, and we have a second one on its way. So we're excited about that. But it's a similar thing. It's a heavy duty vehicle. It has a really significant battery. It gets maybe 100 to 150 miles of range. So I think that's probably pretty similar with the electric buses. So the great thing is if you're idling, you're not using, you're not emitting anything. You're not using as much energy if you're sitting at a bus stop. But they're great for kind of going around town. The heavier duty vehicles and the battery infrastructure, I don't think is quite developed to do lengthy out of town trips on a regular basis. So for us as a line crew, we have to keep some conventional vehicles if we want to do mutual aid or other types of out of town trips. We wouldn't send the electric bucket truck for that, but it's great for around town in Burlington. Yeah.
It can't go 24/7.
No, correct.
And
Have to stop and recharge at a certain point.
then how long does that take to recharge? Just an 8 hour shift?
Yeah, I think like 8 hours overnight, roughly. Yeah. So I don't know. I think Green Mountain Transit, we could get more information for you if you're interested.
No, it isn't. But I would just say if the school had a school bus, they make the morning run. It's
Well,
parked in the lot.
Certainly.
But it's parked in the lot while you're on peak.
certainly.
Or,
Yes.
or whatever, you could make arrangements.
You could, you would
But
probably
if it doesn't,
design
if
it.
it doesn't charge during the day and doesn't have enough to make the route at night, you
Right.
gotta have a,
Yeah, we don't have that exact situation.
no.
Yeah.
But the purpose of this battery is for the off peak.
Yeah, to the extent you can charge off peak, you're really benefiting yourself as a customer because you're going to pay less and the broader utility base. So when we talk about peak, just roughly 15% of our power supply costs in a given year are going to be attributable to how much energy we were using during the 1 hour of the year where the ISO system is peaking. Around 15%, roughly speaking. So the reason we run these peak reduction programs, every kilowatt hour we can reduce during that time frame is going to have some value. And the reason we can offer customers the equivalent of around 75 cents a gallon to charge their electric vehicle is because we know we can interrupt them during those higher cost peak times and really, differentiate. So I think for us, we haven't had as much battery storage. We've been a laggard intentionally around that because our reliability is very strong. We have a compact service territory. About half our infrastructure is underground. So we're looking at batteries mainly for peak reduction, but we did do an RFP last year for 5 megawatt battery storage, and that's in review currently at BED, and we may locate 1 or more 5 megawatt batteries for peak reduction purposes. And we've done some piloting, some mobile battery storage that we were able to use during last summer's peak events as well. So that's what it's all about, is saving money when we can on peak.
So, I'm sorry, Rep. Sebelia was next.
Just the 15%, is that typical for all the Vermont utilities, or is that just?
I don't know. And we are a laggard on battery storage relative to a company like GMP has done a lot on battery
Yeah.
storage. So they may have shifted some of their burden potentially in a meaningful way. I know they've achieved savings that we would be, starting to look at when we install batteries. So that's been a number for us that we've kind of looked at, but I don't know if it's holds true for others.
And then one other, just in terms of deploying batteries to
Yeah.
shave the peak,
Yes.
those bucket trucks, can they be used in that regard?
They're not two-way chargers at the
okay.
moment. So we can avoid charging during the peak, but they can't feed anything back. We did look at another company actually through the Delta Climb, the Sustainable Jobs Program, that had a vehicle to grid, and they were going to do pilots, but at the time that it only worked with Kia EV9s, and we only had like 1 or 2 customers with a Kia EV9 at that point. I think we've seen more of them around Burlington now, but we would like to at some point, pilot some of that technology as well. And certainly the couple hundred kilowatts that's in that bucket truck, if you were able to feed it back during peaks and it wasn't in use, that could be an interesting asset to have. Yeah.
Thanks. That's right.
We have Chris next.
When is your peak and is it shifting?
So, our peak as a utility is almost not the relevant piece. It's really about the regional peak, because it's how much energy we're using when the region peaks. And that's going to be driven by what's going on in Boston and in Connecticut and other places. But it's summertime right now. And it's typically going to be between middle of June and kind of late August, typically. And it's going to be, it used to be kind of more of a midday type of thing. It's moving. And so what we're seeing now is when we call peak events, it's 3 to 7 or 4 to 8. When the air conditioners are running, people are coming home and they're turning on the air conditioners, whatever's going on in that kind of late afternoon, early evening window on a really hot, sunny summer day. When there's been a few hot, sunny summer days beforehand that have kept the heat high, that tends to be when we peak as a region. There's also monthly peaks in Vermont. If you have battery storage, you can, try to reduce your share of the monthly peak in Vermont as well. But it's that annual peak is the portion that I was talking about earlier. Yeah. And it's entirely conceivable if we do a good job as a region putting in a lot of heat pumps, that may change altogether. We might be peaking in the wintertime, and that'll have a different set of challenges.
Chris had like where to say.
Okay.
So if you were to buy that electric bucket truck outright, how much would it cost?
We did, and it was about, I believe it was about 750 grand or 600 grand, something in that range, depending. And we reduced the cost significantly because of the grant from ACCD. So yeah, typically we've seen those in like the $500,000 to $700,000 range for those types of vehicles. It is more expensive up front, no doubt. We do save money on operations and maintenance with the electric versus conventional diesel. Similar thing with the buses, like we were talking about. I think those are have a premium relative to a conventional diesel bus, but then there's some savings they can pay back over a 10 or 12 year period. But it'd be nice to see the upfront cost of that technology come down. It'd be nice as well to see the batteries become, denser and be able to hold more energy so we can get more range out of them. And what I'd like to see, what I haven't seen, and I hope some company makes this, would be a plug-in hybrid electric bucket truck, like we have plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Because if you think about it, for Burlington, if the bucket truck is going around the city, you may be going to use 25 miles, 30 miles, 40 miles. A lot of the time they're sitting there and they're idling at a spot because they're doing work on a power line during an outage, whatever it might be. We're replacing some infrastructure. Having a plug-in hybrid version that could use the battery during those times would be amazing. But having a extended range, engine of some sort, so the limited number of times we need to go out of town for helping another utility with an outage, we could do it on conventional and not have to worry. That would be an interesting business case. And I'm curious what that would cost, if it would be cheaper or more
Because then you
expensive.
only have to have one truck instead of 2.
Exactly, exactly. Right now, we're kind of going through this balancing act of we're going to have 2 electric bucket trucks. And we have currently typically 5 to 6 trucks in the fleet. We may have to retain at some point, additional vehicles just for those out of town trips and that are seldom used, versus being able to have a vehicle that could do both very easily. So,
I think GMP had a hybrid
yeah,
back in 1614.
yeah.
With the solar generation, you mentioned the regional peak between, you said June and August, and June is the longest day of the year.
Yeah.
When does the solar start to drop off in production?
Yeah. So
Perhaps in an August day, August 15th.
yeah, you'll start to see some dipping around the 4 to 5 o'clock time frame. So solar and versus peak, we're still getting a benefit. It's not as big a benefit as if the peak was at, say, 2 or 3 o'clock.
Right, but the day load is not peaking because of the input of solar self-generation.
Correct.
Or whatever, and it's really shifting that
It has shifted it.
peak, and then so the cooling peak is late July, August, and not June. In June, the days aren't hot enough for.
Yeah.
But so the heat, the longest day of the year isn't the hottest day.
Not necessarily at all.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
And so, okay, so
Yeah.
it's that it does start drop off at 6-ish, 5:30.
Yeah. So you'll still
In
see
August,
some
maybe.
benefit of solar when you're hitting those peaks, but the later in the day it goes, the more you might need solar paired with storage to get that benefit, for example.
Thank you.
Okay,
What time are we?
I have a question. Did you also float, is the Senate taking this up? Have you floated this in the Senate? Did you get any bites?
We've had conversations with Chair Watson
Okay.
in the Senate, and I know that committee worked on this the last time around as well. So I think there may be interest there as well, but we haven't testified there yet.
Okay.
So this is our first testimony.
Great. We try to do a little bit of air traffic control, so I will put that on my list to control.
And I can stick
Your
around.
list.
I can stick around as well. So
Yeah, that'd be
here for
great.
the DPS testimony in case you have any additional questions. But thank you so much for your time. We appreciate
Super.
it.
I think we're on with DPS at 11:30, so why don't we go off live and we'll be back in 15.